And we have one scanner anomaly this evening, and I will try and not make it too extensive, but I think it's pretty interesting and pretty cool because this is one of those things that whenever people say, "Oh, it's taken them, 10 years to make one star system, and they're not even done," they're never going to have 100 star systems. They're never going to have five. It's going to take them forever. No, that's not how this works. Tell me you're not paying attention to development, because they are building.
What?
They have built or are building things in order to build star systems and fill them with content and locations, largely procedurally, and that's one of the things that they're using to do so, with the absolute gods up in Montreal with their magic poutine. One of those things that they are using is the procedural locations tool. And so if you're watching right now, you're like, well, it says Mighty Bridge on screen. What are you talking about? Well, we're going to talk about the procedural locations tool and what enabled the procedural locations tool. And so uh, the procedural location tool has been in the works for like a year and a half. It was first mentioned really back in the June 2021 monthly report, um, when the environment art team, they said finally they looked into defining building interior gameplay, creating a prototype layout, and looking into adding proper missions to it. They're also defining how this layout will fit into the procedural location creation tool currently in development by the tools team. Um, and so when they when CIG decided to partner with Turbulent to make their fifth studio, um, up in Montreal, a big part, the whole goal of that studio is to make star systems, not just planets, not just the asteroid fields, but everything that goes in it. And to do it, using procedural tools, so that way they could bam, 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 knock these things out, with those procedural tools. And so far, what they have developed tool wise and what they're using to build those tools, we're just starting to see the surface right now. And next year is when people are people are just starting to realize, oh, and next year when these things come into game, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, they got that much done, in that much amount of time when it took them, you know, however long previously to do similarly. Well, because previously they you had designers and artists creating locations and environments by hand, and they've created procedural planets. The planets they make are done largely procedurally. They have all these tools where basically they're just setting a few parameters and then painting a brush over a circle, and it creates everything on the planet. Well, in order to make, and they do the same thing with, they have the same thing with asteroids. They have the same thing with, oh, we lost Nazarus' camera.
No, I'm gonna disable it so it's not being distracting.
Oh, okay.
And my cat's
Uh,
like at the door, so
okay. You're not on screen though, right? Nazarus. I think went to get his cat. Anyway, um, but yeah, so they CIG and Turbulent up in Montreal have been hard at work creating tools, and so they first really got the tools for making procedural planets up and going. We went through multiple versions, and now we're in Procedural Planet Tech V4, and they're continuing to add tools within that planet tech, that procedural planet tech. That's what the river tech is. That's what the stuff that allows for more variation in in terrain height mapping, and then adding all sorts of different aspects of the environment to it. So they add more and more and more to these tools, and you can think of them kind of like if you've ever been in Photoshop. All the little tools that you see in the toolbar off to the side. They're just adding more of those tools onto the sidebar within the tech as they improve it, in order to create more star systems and planets faster, but also create them with greater variety. Well, another great tool that uh, that has been developed, and was developed by Turbulent, is called Mighty Bridge. And we're just going to watch a quick clip about Mighty Bridge and then talk a little bit about it.
One recent example.
This is from the May 5th, 2022 Inside Star Citizen called Tools Time.
of a tool we developed is the Mighty Bridge.
Mighty Bridge is a plugin for the game editor that link the game editor to any other software.
Right now, the main usage is to be able to work in Houdini and have some effects directly in editor.
With the Mighty Bridge, the communication is done in two-way direction. It can send information and ask stuff to Houdini, for example, and Houdini, while doing the computation, is able to say, okay, you want to place a cave here? Give me all the objects in this 50 meters radius so that I can adapt the recipe and then send back the result. And with other technology, you don't have that two-way communication, so it's also help us doing more complex recipe and adapt the content to the game level.
The reason why the Mighty Bridge is important is there's a lot of technical resources and knowledge in all kinds of amazing tools, like, as I mentioned before, Houdini. And by providing a way that artists can interact with the editor from the tools that they know and love and have learned to use over many, many years, they can make more easily the stuff that they want.
There's no time in between of like thinking about the logistics of everything. It just like does it for you.
We made the Mighty Bridge thinking about the future so that if we want to use other technology, we can plug them into the editor using it. And for example, if we want to use Blender or 3ds Max or Maya or Substance Designer, for example, that we are using, but if we want to plug them into the editor, we could use Mighty Bridge to do that.
Tools programming is core to whoever interacts with anything to make content.
I've been working in the industry for 15 years. I never found a project that has such ambitions. And I feel like this game tends to always say there is a goal and we will do whatever it takes to reach that goal.
Mighty Bridge is just one of the ways tools programmers work to improve the workflow of all developers, allowing for an unprecedented two-way communication between independently developed softwares that were never intended to speak to one another, shaving the downtime and removing the need for import and exports all over the place. But that's not where this week's Tools Time story ends, for we're about to go big with a tool that we've been dreaming about internally since 2019. A way to test our game and infrastructure at the scales we need while leaving developers free to continue developing. Let's meet the Cloud Test Launcher.
Alrighty. So that was Mighty Bridge. And so Mighty Bridge is done. The Mighty Bridge version 1 is done. The tech is in, it works. They have fully hooked up Houdini into the editor. So this allows them to create additional tools within Houdini that they can basically take things that the developers are making in Houdini, and when they make it in Houdini, it basically just goes straight into the editor in the engine. There is no, okay, I have made this in Houdini, now I need to export it and then, into a file and then import it into the editor, and you've got all this downtime in between. And then if it doesn't work right, you have to go back to Houdini and change it. It's, you're just doing it all in Houdini and all goes straight in the engine and it just works. And they're making more and more tools within, for use within Houdini as part of Mighty Bridge to be able to make things in the editor in engine far more seamlessly. The other thing is that it uses two-way communication between the editor and Houdini. So if you make something in Houdini and it puts it into the editor, if the editor needs additional information, it will ask for it and say, oh, okay, you need to supply these parameters in order for me to generate whatever this is. And basically it'll tell you, and then then you put it in and it makes it for you. That's what they're showing you on screen. And the other cool thing is that the Mighty Bridge, they designed it so that it's future-proofed, so that way they can use it to plug in other software that designers use, designers and artists and developers within CIG use, so that way they can further reduce that downtime, allow the devs to work within the software that they're natively familiar with, and then seamlessly port their work over into the editor. So this could eventually be applied to character artists who are making armor, or the weapon, the weapon art teams, the people who make the usables that we have, the weapons and tools, all these different potential uses for it. But right now, because the remit for Montreal is to make and populate star systems, they're using Mighty Bridge in order to create tools for making locations and points of interest. And let me pull my note back up. So the first mention of Mighty Bridge is back in January of 2022. And this was after they mentioned the procedural locations tool in June of 2021. So the beginning of 2021, they are starting up Turbulent over in the Montreal team, and they're like, okay, we need you to do this. And they're like, all right, well, we're going to work on making procedural location tools. How do we do that? Okay, well, one of the big time sinks is having to import and export all your stuff from these different softwares into the editor. So we're going to create a tool that does it for us. So they've been working on Houdini, and they finally start talking about it in January of 2022. And so in January 2022, Montreal Tools completed the Mighty Bridge tool, which is the integration of Houdini into the editor. This allows for various teams to use Houdini to create new tools that will help help content creation across development. For example, the tools team is using it to develop the procedural locations creation tool alongside developing solutions that will be used for derelicts and other locations. And so they go on to mention it basically in every monthly report from January all the way to August. They skipped July. But a couple of the ones that are, let's see, of particular note. Let's see. This is March. So they're at, they just are talking about every monthly report. They're talking about adding additional functionality in Houdini to Mighty Bridge, things that they can use in Houdini that port straight over via Mighty Bridge into the editor. And version 0.5, so not a whole numbered version, was released in April of 2022. And then in let's see where to go. And then in August of 2022, they reached their next big version. The Montreal-based tools team released Mighty Bridge version 0.6 to the dev team. This update adds 2 new functionalities: version 2 of the object spawner, which allows the team to spawn multiple layers of objects onto geometries and planet surfaces, and the cable generator, which I showed you, which generates complex cables from a simple spline. Things like they use for in space stations and underground facilities, and in the future asteroid facilities. So yeah, since they completed the tool in January, they've been continuing to iterate on the tool and add more and more, since completing Mighty Bridge, they've been continuing to iterate on it to allow more and more things to utilize Mighty Bridge within Houdini, so that way they have got more and more tools to create things faster. Instead of having to make things by hand, through these painful processes, they're making all these tools that allow you to basically create the locations much quicker, whether it's the just generic outline of the location or the all the different set dressing. And so moving on to the procedural location tool. Where is it? Like I said, they first mentioned it back in June of 2021. That's how long they've been working on this. They had to build a plugin in order to start making the tool. But then they started mentioning specifically the procedural locations tool in January when they finished the Mighty Bridge plugin. And so each month they've been also, that they mentioned Mighty Bridge, they've also been mentioning the work that they're doing with the procedural locations tool and all the different things that they're using it for. And let's see, the big highlight, big things of note. So on the technical art time, two major areas, and this is from the March 2022 monthly report. On the technical art side, two major areas of development progressed. The first is the procedural location tool, which will speed up the production of certain locations. Certain locations, not all, but certain ones. Other locations are going to be developed using Rastar. And we're going to be talking about that in another scanner anomaly coming up soon. The team are currently designing the tool's template system to allow the designers and artists to procedurally generate various locations, such as derelict outposts and settlements, caves, and underground facilities. And I'm certain that this list will also include asteroid facilities. So the procedural locations tool basically will generate like 80% of the location for the designers based off of the templates that they've created for the different locations. And then the designers can further use additional tools like that cable tool and a bunch of other things in order to basically lay out props and set dressing to make the location look unique and fit the environment that they're going for. Kind of like how they are able to take the space stations from Stanton and they took the same art and it's the same layouts from the space stations in Stanton, and they mashed them up, moved them around using Mighty Bridge and the procedural locations tool, and that's how they are making the Pyro space stations, and then making them look different. They're using different tools in order to dress those same layouts that have been created differently, but the same way but differently, to make them look like these rundown stations, but they're doing it light years faster than the stations in Stanton were created. So the where's the next one? So the procedural this one is for May 2022. The procedural location creation tool is also progressing well. The foundation is now a lot stronger, and the team have begun creating basic layouts. They've also moved to create supporting corridors and corridor loops, as well as supporting the various required templates, space stations, caves, underground facilities, etc., soon asteroid facilities. It's all the same. On the exterior of it, it's the same tech. But then on the interior of it is what is different, and it's basically the rooms that it creates, and the layouts are based off of the parameters that they set. But then the interior of the room that you can see looks different based off of what tools you're using. So if you're creating a space station or a cave or an underground facility, the tool uses what they've made to create the layouts, but then the interior that you see is based off of which aspect of the tool that you're using, but it can do it 1,000 times faster. The team's current goal is to get version 1 to designers and artists so they can gather feedback and get it production ready. So they're moving really fast through this. This is the really big example of why this is so important, and this is going to impact everything when it comes to generating locations. On the technical art side, the procedural locations creation tool is progressing well, with the team expecting to put the first version into the hands of the team soon. This is June 2022. So first version into the hands of the team soon. Advancements were made to a suite of asset scattering and environmental integration tools. For example, the first prototype will be a tool to create a destruction trail behind spaceships in derelict settlements. Instead of having to edit by hand, the environment artist will be able to draw a spline that will automatically create the trail before adjusting a set of variables to make the trail to make the trail look exactly how they want. This type of tool can represent great gains in productivity. For example, creating a trail by hand took an artist around a week. This tool should reduce that time to half a day. So instead of 5 whole days, it's 1/2 day. Think of how much more that artist can get done when they have 4.5 extra days available to them, because this one tool was able to make their life that much easier. So just when they show off the derelict settlements that they're making right now, the proof of concept was the reclaimer, and then they are furthering these tools to say, okay, here's the proof of concept, here's the new tool, make it faster. And that's how we're going to be getting a massive variety and massive numbers of places like the derelict settlements, places like the new outposts and the crash locations, all that sort of stuff. And then the last part that's just another just adds on to that. Let's see. The team is, and this is August, so it wasn't mentioned in September's monthly report. We're looking forward to August or October's monthly report soon, so that way we can follow up on this. The team is also nearing completion of the first version of the Procedural Locations Creation tool. This will allow them to create and edit simple layouts of space stations in minutes, and will dramatically decrease the time it takes to make stations out of existing modules. So when they were first showing us back in like ISC or whatever in, I think it was like 2017, 2018, of them making these, the stations that we have in Stanton, it took them months. It was weeks and months just to create the layouts of the space stations. And now they can do it in minutes because of what you saw. I'll show you show you that clip, because it generates it procedurally. It just, you click and it's done. They're also in the final push of the first version of the tool that will help create derelict settlements. The goal of this iteration is to be able to create 80% of a derelict settlement procedurally. This heavy lifting will allow the artists more time to polish and finish the location. Reaching this goal will mean that a derelict settlement will take weeks rather than months to create. So you're talking about, likely a 5 to 10-fold improvement in productivity for derelict settlements, for space stations. And that same improvement in productivity will be applied to underground facilities and asteroid facilities. All the locations other than the bespoke ones that are made by, and they're not really bespoke, but they kind of are. But this is, if it isn't made by Rastar, which is the outposts and cities, it's made by the Procedural Location tool, and they're working on that tool, working hard on it, so that way, in the very near future, they'll be able to build out those locations super fast. Basically, when you're talking about how long it'll take to create a star system, if it takes weeks for designers to make settlements and space stations versus months, it means that they can get the same amount of space stations and settlements done in those months, 5-10 times as much that they would have otherwise. And that's how you go from a star system in a couple years to a star system in a few months, a couple quarters, if not less. And here is the example on the Turbulent website of the Mighty Bridge tool at work. So this is it procedurally making the interior layout of a space station. And you can see, how there isn't a whole bunch of assets scattered on the floors in these rooms and everything, but the layouts are there, and the layouts are there based off of the rooms. So it takes these layouts and the rooms that, okay, I need a space station layout and I need it to have this, and this room. Check all these boxes, and it'll create the layout based off of the space that you give it. It'll do the same thing for an underground facility. It'll do the same thing for a cave. You want the cave to follow, to go deep or shallow and go wide, or based off of the exterior of the space station. We have variety in those. It will say, okay, here's the space you have to work with. Here is where these airlock connection points need to be. Make me a layout. Boom, it does it. Houdini simulation tool allows for the automation of a ship's destruction. So ship crash, a reclaimer crash, instead of having to hand place it and crash, and the pieces go all over the place, and that's how you see them. For cloths, here's the cables that they're showing you, and this is early, but you can basically placing those to make them look how you want. Everything you need to dress an environment after it's been procedurally created for you, using procedural tools to not only dress the environment but create it in the first place. So that's why this stuff is super cool to me, because it's just ingenious to be able to make it that way. It's a quantum leap in production over what a lot of game companies do, just because they don't want to invest the time and resources into making tools like this, because we don't need these massive environments, we don't need these big levels or giant universes, or we can just copy and paste it. CIG is taking a different approach, and it's taken a while to get there, but now we have tons of layouts and tons of assets, and now we're getting the tools needed to be able to take those assets and put them, make places to go with them, and those assets already have all the tags in them needed for the gameplay that goes with. So things will get made, and they will just work.
Are you telling me that Call of Duty does not want to spend 10 years making procedural generation for a 4-kilometer map?
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
This is why, they're like, oh yeah, we could spend a couple years making these maps and make them look really good, doing things by hand, because we don't want to spend the time and money making tools to make things differently. It's just the way it is. I'm liking the results, but I'm looking forward to seeing more of this as they make the underground facilities, take them from the white box that we're seeing to full production, as they do the same thing for asteroid facilities, as we get more space stations.
Yeah. Was it? I have thought. Where was it? Oh, I really hope that CIG company makes a lot of these tools available on the market. Yes, they are very necessary for Star Citizen, but if you were to give the suite of tools that they're using to another company, maybe you think Bungie, what could they do? What could they get the use out of it that CIG is? Could they make a Destiny 3 with expansive worlds, not just you have your maps and tight load screens? Yes, it would cost a engine jump for them, which they really don't want to do, but my point still stands. Like, what could other games do? What other IPs could use this because their IP is too big? Star Wars? Star Wars necessitates many
Grandiose
planets. Yeah. There is no production of Star Wars, book, show, movie, comic, that stays on a single planet. None I've seen. Not one. Star Trek, obviously, not that Paramount wants to do anything with making an actual good Star Wars game, a Star Trek game. It's fine. Babylon 5 is getting a remake. Maybe? Come on. Like, there so many IPs could pick this up and actually do something with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the potential for using it for as far as other things beyond game creation. You know,
Oh, yeah.
the CGI environments, you know, for, you know, creating movies and TV shows, you know, instead of artists having to do things, you know, by hand over and over and over again. You know, you're paying someone for a year to do the same thing, you know, 50,000 times. You know, imagine how much more that they could create.
Yeah.
And that's whew.
And this is another reason why I'm kind of sad that it's not an Unreal Engine, because Unreal Engine is a movie production engine. It's been used in a lot of movies. And
Maybe
another reason
someday.
I'm kind of sad that that Lumberyard went open source, like, we don't want to actually make money on this engine kind of way. Not that I've seen any like movement on that, like what their plans are, but reading the post, it's like, hey, we don't want to develop the engine anymore. What it kind of read like. So hopefully Amazon is still backing their engine.
Mm-hmm.
And not just throwing up on a free-to-play model engine. Hopefully. But yeah, these tools are insane. And I cannot wait to play with Rastar.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait for the update in 2 days. We've got we've got
I wonder if there'll be like, if later on construction will be a profession, like not just the pioneer, but like vehicles and things to facilitate a whole construction and a complexity in the construction to warrant like calling someone in instead of doing it yourself.
A specialist, somebody who's good at it. You know, hey, I need you to make me a base with this, this, and this here, but I only have this much money. Can you do it? You know.
Yeah. Yep. That.
Well,
interesting times.
Yeah, very interesting, especially because they're showing us, they showed us a little bit of procedural location creation. They're showing us Rastar. We're going to be getting more and more updates of production using these tools as they continue to develop. You know, I'm just insanely excited because, you know, we've talked about it multiple times here. You know, just got stupid excited at them showing us underground facilities, and I got excited not only because they look super cool, but because Nazeris and I have been reading the monthly reports, you know, in depth for almost a year now. And I mean, we were doing it before, but now we've been doing it together for almost a year now. And because we both are nuts for UI and tool stuff, we really hyper focus on these things. And so when Nazeris and I both saw the underground facility presentation, we're like, oh my gosh, look what they're going to be making with these tools. And then when they showed off that little snippet of the, here, let me, hold on, I've got it. Where'd it go? It's in my Discord.
Especially because they're like,
this guy,
they're going to be doing the exact same thing they're doing with caves or with space stations. It's the exact same premise.
Yeah.
And the thing I want to see with the tool, now that it's like super cheap, you can make a space station in minutes. You can make this thing in a month or two. The thing I want to see is bigger space station interiors, bigger caves, expansive underground facilities, not just 5-minute areas, but maybe like half an hour areas, hour areas you can spend in them. Like,
and this giant asteroid with a big old hangar that you can pull into.
I mean, you're definitely more excited about the ones than I am.
I am, because that is peak sci-fi for me. Is, you know, Well, why build a station when we can save on construction costs by just boring holes into asteroids? You know. Let's see. Blizzard says, "Do you think we'll see bespoke stations around the verse, or will every possible option be included in the tool for randomization?" I think that there will be levels of bespokeness. They'll use the tool to generate procedurally as much as they can, but they'll tweak it in ways to make it bespoke for certain station locations, or especially if they're stations specifically mentioned in the lore, in order to give
So
them less of a mass-produced feel.
this is actually a really good plug for your series. Lore equals gameplay.
Yeah.
The R&R stations in lore are cookie cutter stations.
Mm-hmm.
There are stations that are not cookie cutter station.
Yeah.
So they will either have a bespoke tile set and just use the tool, because that's how you build a good... Like, the tool is not just the same, like, look. It's also architectural fundamentals. So it also helps placing signage to get players through the area. So I almost guarantee that interiors will almost always be randomized, just the tile sets might be swapped out. Exteriors, I'm pretty sure those are modular, but also bespoke. They actually just do build them. They give an artist, hey, build an exterior. And Ruin Station is one of those much more bespoke than random.
It's a Gold Horizon terraforming support station, and so it is bespoke to an extent, and so there will be design elements that you will see in other Gold Horizon stations around the verse, but there won't be many Gold Horizon stations around the verse. There's only so many places that needed terraforming support in the verse, versus the R&R stations. They're going to be like at most Lagrange points in settled systems. Well, there will be hundreds of them, and with variability, but not you're going to recognize it when you see it. I think the other ones that will probably be much more limited in as far as looking generic will be stations for unique factions, where we only have a handful of them scattered across the verse. So like a UEE Marine space station, there aren't going to be a lot of those. There'll be probably quite a few UEE Navy stations, but not UEE Marine stations, just because they don't spend much. Don't use
Jericho
stations
is
all
a
that
really
much.
good example of something that came out of the procedural system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like
that will have
there.
a procedural interior, and that's the exterior, and that's a small version. The other things that I think will be bespoke, but have bespokeness, but will be shipyards at Lagrange points, because most ships are not, the overwhelming majority of ships are not built like they are on Orison. Small ships can be built on planets, but big ships are built at Lagrange point shipyards, and I think those will be pretty bespoke.
Also, spaceship parking lots exist near major ports.
Yeah, yep. But yeah, there will be. I mean, there aren't too many instances in the lore of space stations that are, this is a one-off. It was built for this specific purpose. There's only one of them.
There's a reason. Because the lore team knew that Montreal, and even back then, they knew, like 2012, the lore team knew we're not going to build this polygon by polygon every single step of the way. We are going to need, like Chris probably told him, we are going to need procedural tech to get this done. We cannot spend 10 years per system. 4 quarters per station. We can't do that.
I will say
so they wrote in from the beginning that these stations were, this company did most stations here. Like, we still have other themes like CTR. That's the
Yeah.
Xi'an-based R&R.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. For the Lagrange point, basically the equivalent of truck stop gas space stations, you have R&R, the rest and relax. You've got CTR, and I guarantee you Cryastro is going to be making a comeback. We're going to see Cryastro stations in game. And so you might see systems that are, almost like your local monopolies. Maybe Stanton is more of a R&R hub, whereas in Terra they are friendly with the Xi'an, and some there's more CTR. Or maybe because CTR is new, you'll see them scattered along the Xi'an border systems, but not really, further into UE space. And there will be variety between the two. You'll know you're at a gas station. You'll know you're at a truck stop, but you'll know, okay, this one's definitely CTR. It's just like going, okay, this is, I'm on a platform in Orison versus, in a bubble in New Babbage. Okay, yeah, this is humanity. This is a landing zone, a city, but they are different cities.
And they do have different levels of service. I forget which one of the three is basically a do-it-yourself garage. You can do anything you want in the garage. There's one of the other three, or the other two of the three, is that you are not allowed to use this as a personal garage. This is an automated garage. You pay us for our service, and you get out.
Yeah, Oregon gas stations.
So.
And we don't allow you
R&R,
to fuel your own spaceship. We
Yeah.
don't trust you enough. You're not a responsible adult enough to.
Yeah, and as you were just saying, like R&R will be like the only option as you get more towards Sol, but as you get towards Terra, CTR, being a Xi'an-based company, will be more and more and more popular. Because everything from Xi'an spreads from the Xi'an border into the Empire. And it will get nowhere near Earth because centralist. Oh man. We got 2 hours. 17 minutes. Yeah.
That's a good question, and unless we have any other questions from those of you still in chat, I just want to say thank you for joining us and coming and hanging out. I will hopefully have this episode up on YouTube in the next couple of days. So check it out there. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. We're always looking for and we appreciate your feedback. And you can also provide that feedback in my Discord. Nazeris and I are always available and happy to listen and incorporate the feedback. But please help this my channel here on Twitch and on YouTube to grow. Because everything I do is for charity. If you have seen in the chat at the top, it says stackup.org. $50 raised of our $200 goal, and we'll just keep on increasing that goal. But not only can you donate directly to charity via that donation tool, but all of my monetization from Twitch and YouTube will go to stackup.org. Because I believe in what they do. And so if you want to learn more, go look up their website, but they connect veterans and members of the military with video game communities to help them, cope with PTSD, struggles with being deployed, all that sort of stuff. It's a mission I believe in because I'm prior and current military, have deployed numerous times. So yeah, help me, help them, feed the algorithm, watch my stuff, come hang out and talk with Nazeris and I, and we appreciate it. But yeah, that's all we have for this evening. Nazeris, do you want to tell them what they need to do?
Well, first I'm going to give them a little taste of what my scanner anomaly should have been.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine. Anyway, so deep diving, not really deep diving, but giving a cohesive, altogether portfolio of Aegis Dynamics. Not only like their startup and where they are at now, but going through and picking up every single ship, every single event. Why do they have the reputation of being the absolute worst possible manufacturer, never buy their... Speaking as a transitionalist. and we're gonna get into a lot of lore. It's gonna be a very lore-heavy scanner anomaly. This is gonna be. Do we do scanner anomalies when we do the monthly reports? If we do,
No, not next week, but
okay, so not next week. In 2 weeks, I'll be back to give this one, and it's going to be specifically like this. This was asked by a friend of mine. Why are they so terrible? And he said it as a joke, but I'm like, actually, that's a really good point.
the 14th.
The 14th. So it's not only going to be just a good roundup of information on Aegis Dynamics, everything. This is going to become a series for me that I'm going to be doing here on the show. I'm going to go through and run through all these different manufacturers. Like, the Consolidated Outland one might be just a little footnote I do sometime because it's like, Elon Musk builds spaceships. That's basically all we got currently. But it's also going to help me build out my timeline. So with all
two
the
birds, one
planets
stone. I
that
like
we
it.
talk about, all the planets we talk about, all the ships will be on the timeline, and when they release, as close as possible, because the stupid Avenger is like the second half of the 28th century. It's like that helpful. So I'm gonna research into. I'm gonna look up all the stupid concept guides, concept sales guides, catalog things. What are they called?
Oh, like
brochures.
for the comlinks?
The brochures.
Yeah, the brochures.
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be a deep dive, and I couldn't do it in 2 hours, and I forgot that we actually had scanner anomalies this one. So yeah, that's what we're doing there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so next Monday will be the monthly reports because we're getting those tomorrow. So that'll be next Monday. The following Monday is your scanner anomaly on Aegis Dynamics. I'm going to be doing what I did today for the procedural locations tool on Mighty Bridge with Rastar. And I actually picked that before they mentioned that they're going to be showing us Rastar, a Rastar update on Thursday's ISD. So it worked out perfectly for me. So that will be on the 14th before I go back to work for a few days.
You just Blizzrad, but it's kind of true. I mean, actually, I don't want to spoil too much because there's actually in the current Aegis Dynamics there is actually a glimmer of really good, a lot of good. Also, mining version of the Retaliator as a teaser. I don't know about Drake yet. I look forward to my deep dive into Drake to see what actually makes current Drake, because 2 years ago I think we just went through a CEO change at Drake, and the last CEO was what's the word? Not sympathetic to pirates, but she said some things that she shouldn't have said. And the current owner of Drake, the current CEO, it is very, very good at selling Drake as for the people kind of ships. So I look forward to going into the Drake one. I look forward to all of them because there's gonna be a lot of stuff.
I am looking forward to meeting the new Drake CEO at IAE.
Yeah,
that was really cool that they showed. That they showed
a pirate in the Kraken, but the Idris.
Yeah,
that's because no one who sees a pirate in Kraken lives to tell that he's seen a pirate in Kraken.
Well, it's cool that they're finally showing us another CEO of a ship manufacturer. We've only really seen Space Elon Musk, from Consolidated Outland, and I wonder if that's going to be a thing. Like we're going to see the other CEOs, in coming IAEs, talking about how Aegis is rebranding themselves, or Anvil's mission statement, or RSI's technological superiority, all that sort of stuff.
Or who's gonna partner with Shubin to make a spaceship?
Oh,
because they've been around a while. They know what spaceship needs.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a string they could pull. That'd be really cool. Like there are so many strings in this lore. It's great. And
Oh, yeah,
every
but
time they
those will
write
be-
anything,
Those
it
will be
means
our
gameplay.
scanner anomalies for the 14th, along with the roadmap roundup. So I'm apologizing in advance, but the 14th is going to be a long episode. We'll try and maybe we can get started an hour earlier, because we'll have
we also have a guest.
yeah. Well, the good thing is the roadmap roundup will be shorter, because I don't think it's going to, they're not going to have a bunch of changes to, on the shiny tracker, because it's not, continuation of the quarterly updates. Yeah, Blizzard, I totally agree. I've always loved the Pioneer announcement, and we definitely need more of that. And I'm hoping that we get more of that. Plus, it'd be like, how cool would it be if you could just do something stupid, like go up and interact with the Drake CEO on the show floor, be like, "Hey, will you sign my Drake Corsair plushie?" Something just and,
That would
it's
be
like an animation.
That would be a great like interaction with the lore.
Mm-hmm.
To have a sign a thing interaction and a take a picture with.
Yeah.
And so you don't
Get a
like give
selfie
us like a
with
camera, but
the
like
Drake CEO.
let us use our screenshot button and let us take like an actual image from ourselves and let us take pictures of us with the CEO and let him pose. So it's not just like, cardboard cutout of the CEO. That would be
the Drake CEO T-pose.
Oh. Yeah. Oh man, so many ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So which one was going to get employed at CIG to tell them all?
Yeah. I would gladly. I don't know what I would do for CIG, but I would gladly quit my job and leave medicine forever if I thought I could go to work for CIG remotely and live where I live and just telecommute for
I know
CIG.
exactly what I'd be doing. QA, producer, or designer.
Mm.
Probably, I would say that order, but possibly that order, because I want to end up in design. I don't want to end up producer, because producer, like, even though they're great and they're necessary, they don't get to do a ton of stuff. Do a Jackson, ask them how many bodies do an SCU. How many civilian ships can be shot down by colors in an hour? Woo! You want to be ready to be blacklisted by the Drake CEO? That's how you do it.
All right. Well,
so now we can outro.
I have to. Yeah, now we can outro because I have to get up and actually go teach in the morning. So.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So, thank you everyone for watching. As I said, it's been a shorter one, like a half an hour short almost, or over a half an hour. But that's because I screwed up and didn't give myself enough time. So I also have YouTube. I'm gonna plug my stuff too because I need to, or else nothing happens. I don't do a lot of Star Citizen content currently because I'm bad at making. Scared it'll come out badly. So I'm just afraid of making content. But I do run a YouTube channel, mostly Space Engineers and Lily Planet right now. Hopefully it will change, like especially with the series I'm doing. But yeah, we will be doing some things. I have some very fun plans in the future with the YouTube channels. I also have a Discord, that stuff. I actually should probably like get links for this crap. Give me a moment. Running everywhere trying to find it. There we go. There's that. That be the Discord. You can just go there, and there'll be links to the thing in the YouTube channels in the Discords. But yeah, thank you all for joining again. I don't know why I want to say it twice. Because mostly, why am I forgetting something? Anyway, thank you all for watching. And as always, be kind.
Have a good night.